Hello, good afternoon. Welcome back because I'm back. I was here yesterday. Oh, thank you all so much for joining me for episode 5 of Black Writers Read. Season 5, episode 5. Yeah, I was here yesterday. I'm still trying to get it together. My name is Nicole Young Martin, and I'm the founder, producer, and host for the series. I have a double header, like I mentioned this weekend. This is my second live stream for the weekend. Yesterday, I chatted with Dr. Khadija Ali Coleman about her recently published poetry collections and her forthcoming work. Today, I welcome my first filmmaker. Season 5 is all about narrative construction and storytelling. So I'm welcoming folks on who create worlds. So you'll hear from people who have released their words in various forms. And for people who are near Western Mass and Northern Connecticut, I'll be performing next week on Saturday, October 26th at 7:30 p.m. at the Academy of Music in Northampton, Mass. As a part of Letters Aloud, Thanks But No Thanks, the greatest rejection letters of all time. We will be reading rejection letters that were sent to famous people about different queries and things like that. I'm really excited to be a part of this. I'm one of the local celebrities that will be featured. For more information, visit the Academy of Music's website, which is AOM Theater. That is theater with re.com, AOMTheatre.com for more information. So I'm very excited to welcome today's guest. We've chatted a little bit on Instagram for about, I think, like a year or so. So it's great to finally have him on. So I'm excited to get started. Black Writers Read showcases, celebrates, and honors the words, work, and traditions of Black writers from across the country, across genres, across experience, and across the African diaspora. Black Writers Read is a behind the scenes conversation into the craft and what it means to create as a Black author in today's society. Since starting the series during the summer of 2020, we've hosted almost 70 authors representing 10 plus genres from 5 countries and 17 states. Our platform includes the live stream interviews, audio podcasts, book clubs, curriculum development assistance. Find us online at blackwritersread.com. Today, we welcome filmmaker Adrian Burks. Adrian is a director, writer, actor, and producer, an ex-collegiate athlete originally from Milwaukee, Wisconsin. Adrian has been a filmmaker in Los Angeles for over a decade. He has appeared in movies such as the Academy Award-winning Whiplash and the comedic cult classic First Period. Adrian has also appeared in television shows such as CBS Code Black and All About Lizzie. He has written 5 produced short films, has directed 3, and is currently in development for a feature film he wrote and plans to direct. Adrian won 6 awards for his film After Laughter, which I had an opportunity to see, and we'll talk a little bit about today as well, in which he co-wrote, co-directed, produced, and starred in. He went on to get accepted and won the Sony Pictures and Independent Film Trust Creative Writing Program. He wrote a self-help film guidebook, which we'll talk a little bit about today as well, How to Frame Success, a Filmmaker's Guidebook to Vision, Networking, and Cinematic Triumphs, published earlier this year. I wish this came out 20 years ago when I was an undergrad, and is currently VP of Production and Development for Tiger Pig Entertainment. Dive into the heart of DIY filmmaking with How to Frame Success, a filmmaker's guidebook to vision, networking, and cinematic triumphs. In this comprehensive guide, aspiring filmmakers will discover the essential tools and strategies needed to navigate the dynamic world of filmmaking. From cultivating a clear vision to effectively networking within the industry, each chapter provides practical advice and actionable tips for aspiring filmmakers. Learn how to produce your own films, maximize opportunities at film festivals, and assemble a reliable crew to bring your vision to life on screen. With insights from Academy and Award-winning creatives and real-world examples, this book is a must-have resource for anyone passionate about filmmaking. Whether you're just starting out or looking to take your career to the next level, How to Frame Success will empower you to achieve your dreams. To learn more about Adrian and his body of work, please visit his website, and I'll be sharing his social media handle and also his website throughout our conversation. It is www.adrianburksartist.com. That is ADRIANBURKSARTIST.com. For today's episode, we're going to launch right into the conversation. Adrian has so graciously offered to show us a few clips from some of his work. I'm super excited about that. If time remains after our conversation, I'll open it up to Q&A for those who are joining us. We typically have people joining us from Facebook and YouTube. If you have a question, please free to include it in the comment section where you're joining us from today. I'll compile the questions and either pose them to our guests following our conversation or insert them during an appropriate time within our chat. Not only, and I'm super excited about today for a host of reasons. One, to talk, of course, about writing in general, but also just world construction, and then also the filmmaking industry, which is something that I've been very much invested in, not only as a professor, but also as an artist. And it's so great to have an insider here with us today. For folks who are long-term supporters, you all know I curate this series specifically with the folks who are on. I send questions beforehand. Given that I have an opportunity to speak with someone in an industry that so many people are fans of, but not that familiar with the inside workings of it, I may be adding some questions to our conversation, and to do pretty much like what I have in the past in terms of really diving deep into craft. So we'll be talking not only about writing, but about the filmmaking industry in general. So I'd now like to welcome Adrian onto the virtual stage.
Hello.
Hello.
Hi, how are you guys?
Good. I and similarly to what I do with all the folks on Black Writers Read, I'm gonna
Mhm.
try not to fangirl because it's like and like I'm thinking back to because I just turned 45 and I'm thinking back to like my 20-year-old self. I had like all these dreams and goals. I was a theater major. I was like, I'm gonna do all these things in the industry. And then I graduated and I have, friends who and they're doing really well now. I have friends who
Mhm.
did like the page programs at NBC and CBS and all these things in New York City and LA and took a risk and moved. I
Mhm.
did the safe route and went to graduate school in theater management. And worked in the nonprofit realm, and now
Wow,
I'm
you're in it.
like, yeah. So I'm in it in another realm, and I'm just like, am I like I ask people because people are like, what is your like dream job? I won't share it here, but I'm like, I hope I'm not too old. So I appreciate you being on today. This is going to be a little bit of schooling for me too, and
Yeah,
I
of
hope for everyone
course.
that's joining.
Of course. It's my pleasure. First of all, thank you for having me. And it's been great talking to you and getting to know you over the last, about a year as well. Just talking about, film, talking about what you're doing and projects. And it feels good. I'm so glad you have this platform to reach out to, the community and to expand it. I mean, it's a must, especially now in this climate and, through everything that we're going through. So much love, Nicole. I really appreciate you. And thanks for
Thank
having
you.
me. You're welcome.
Yeah. Thanks so much, Adrian. And I'm glad that you mentioned because that was one of the things, and I will find a way to insert it in the conversation, but you are right. Like literally, I think a year ago today, I believe you were on the picket line.
Yeah. 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 Uh-huh. It was actually too because it was right. It was around the time when we were like really heavily going into the strike or like exiting the strike. Like the strike was about a year long, and now we're in almost a full year after. And I remember going into the strike. Maybe we had been in for a couple months or so, and reaching out. What can I do? Like, what can I do? I'm going to write a book. And then I wrote a book, and then we talked. And then I reached out to you after because I really wanted to get the word out there, especially, people asking kind of in my community, well, how were you able to do this? How were you able to connect to this person? And I wanted to give the information out as much as possible because I wish I would have had that when I started. So thank you.
That's what it's because I was like, because I was thinking about that. I was like, the timing of the book was published in April, and I was like,
Mm-hmm.
wait a minute. I'm like,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Oh man. Yep. Mm-hmm. It's been a journey.
and on that note, let's get started with our conversation. So, like I mentioned in my intro, since I have on a filmmaker, and thank you so much for saying, in our little pre-show chat that I can pose any questions.
Yeah.
Because I believe, especially given the folks who watch Black Writers Read, I have a mix of folks who are industry like traditional publishing and all these things in terms of like books and literature, but I
Mm-hmm.
have a lot of students
Mm-hmm.
who watch and listen as well, and so I hope that this is an opportunity for folks to get some and formal education from someone who's in the industry. So thank you.
Yeah. No. No. Thanks for having me. I appreciate it. Anything that I can help or give insight to, I will. And I'm 100% transparent and I keep it real. So like I'm ready.
So the first conversation I have for you, I would love to start off at the very beginning of your career journey. How did you land in the filmmaking industry?
Oh man, yeah. Oddly enough, I was a collegiate football player. I went to Indiana University, where me and my brother had played. And then so oddly enough, I was trying to figure out class schedule, and I had an opening my redshirt freshman year, and I took a theater class. I had done one show because you have to, like in high school, I wanted to do something else. I had extended my credits. I was like pretty much done having half days. So I did theater class, and I did end up doing a show. I did Death of a Salesman. And I just thought, oh man, this was so much fun. Like kind of the same foundation that sports brought, and playing music, because I had played trumpet since middle school at that point, since sixth grade. I'm like, oh, it's kind of the same foundations of using, drive and articulation, and using kind of an art form to get it out. And so I wanted to try it in high school. And then I fell in love with it even more in high school, like learning like the foundation of acting, of theater. And so I did my red shirt freshman year. So my actual, like my first year of college, I didn't audition or do any shows. And then my second year, I'm a true freshman year, but my second year, which is red shirt freshman year, I did a show. I auditioned and did a show. I did a show called American Mall, which was like so groundbreaking and so like risque, and like just a very good progressive show. And it made me fall in love with it. So I knew, like, during football, I kind of got hurt here and there. I still played a lot. And I kind of made that conscious decision. I think I'm going to try being an actor and doing something in the film and TV industry. I had connected with someone who was in a production out here, and I ended up booking like a small indie like series called Little High, Little Low. It didn't really go anywhere, but basically when I came out here, I had a job, basically, like, which was so short, but it set the foundation for me to like really be in it. So once I was here, I'm like, I'm staying. And then I got into the film industry.
Wow. And with the filmmaking industry, and for folks who don't know, because I have some friends who work in television, and this leads into the next question. You don't just take on one role. You're not just, I'm just an actor. Like when you're working on this level, you have to be hustling. Like I even know, like even in theater, like with playwrights are not strictly playwriting anymore. They're also professors, and they're doing like screenwriting and all these things. So you have to wear multiple hats because you are in a gig industry.
Yeah. I oddly enough, I didn't know if I necessarily had that mindset. I knew that I wanted to perform. Because I was a theater minor. So when you're in theater too, you have to do all the prerequisites. Not only was I auditioning and I was in shows when I wasn't in football, but I had to do like theater lighting. I had to do theater production. I had to do script analysis, breakdown, and study scripts like Hamlet and Shakespeare and whatever the course required. And so automatically you kind of have a foundation of learning a little bit of everything in the entity of like performing arts. Now that was theater, and then a transition to here. I came out here solely just wanting to act and just get in the film industry. But I think through all the things and meeting people, I really got an itch of like learning, like, oh my God, I really have interest in this. I really want to like write. I love writing. And I, started working on that. And then I ended up getting jobs. Like I had a mentor. I think it was my third or fourth year living here. I ended up having a mentor like Howard Gordon, who is is the executive from 24 and X-Files and Homeland. And I kind of got a knack of like learning what it was like to just be in a big full-time production, whether from start to finish, producing, kind of the creative aspect and directing. And then from there, I was like, oh my God, I want to learn everything there is to know about filmmaking so that I can create my own worlds and eventually kind of run or have my own production company where I have projects going in that I'm either directing, or maybe I'm just producing, or maybe I'm acting and writing, kind of like all encompassing. But it was a journey, because I didn't know that I would like want to filter off into other aspects of the industry. But it just became like nowadays, especially, like you have to kind of know the in and outs and be able to like create your own work in order to get work.
And then also too, this goes into the conversation that I had yesterday, and next will lead into the next question. The guest that I had on yesterday, Khadijah, she was saying, because she has chosen to publish work on her own and through her own company. And one of the things that people don't realize is, as creatives, like there's the whole, getting your work out there mainstream. But what happens is you lose, like the bigger your work becomes, the more rights you lose to your work.
Yeah.
And so
Mhm.
this is one of the reasons why, like several folks go independent. So it's because it's like, it's
Yep.
this whole like owning your work and owning your voice.
Yeah. It's very much like that. I think, especially when you're kind of like, you know, coming from elsewhere and you don't have a lot of access or connections. You're in a in the ocean and you're a fish swimming rather than like in a small pond.
Yeah.
Um, you give rights in order for your work to be seen. Starting off independently at first, of course, you have shorts. You submit to film festivals. You do this. You do that. If you can create your own money or create it for cheap, which I do talk about in my book as well, you own full access. You have stuff you can maybe make a deal. Maybe you get a distribution deal. Most likely, you won't unless it's like really, really good or you have access. But then, slowly you start to give up more rights or you renegotiate, but your work gets seen by more people. Until fully we are at a point, I can't wait to reach this eventually, but I'm on my way where you would like own a big percentage of the property that you get. It's very much like that.
So when did you discover your talents as a screenwriter? And then going back to the initial entry point of this question, how interdependent are the skills that you use as an actor, director, producer, and writer within the industry and also as a screenwriter?
Sometimes as a screenwriter, you even wonder if your work is actually good. So
Oh
to
no!
be honest, you're always so critical of your own work, man. Like, I don't think it ever changes. Even if it's responded well, you're like, oh, I wish I could change that. Oh, that didn't quite hit. I don't know if you're ever fully 100% wholeheartedly like, oh yeah, that's the shit. I'm good. That's my, my thing. But you do figure out things that work. You figure out things that hit, and sometimes things that you didn't know would be read or received the way they are. And that happens too. I think, right, as an actor, I have had the pleasure to read so many scripts. I've had the pleasure to work in some amazing scripts and some not so great ones either. So then I think as an actor, when you're coming from theater and anything, when reading a lot of scripts, you kind of understand. You know what constitutes as something that, oh my God, this will be received. This is good or solid, and just something that connects with you. And I think for me, they all placate in each role. So as a director, as an actor, as someone who has acted, like, it makes it easier for me to connect with the actors. I know kind of how to hit and how to push and how to pull. As a writer, I know what things will work and know what things won't. And sometimes you still are learning out those things. And then I think just as an entity, as a producer, that is more on the business side. You know how to like make your work connect with people, right? Like, if you think about it, like the industry, it's a service industry. We're here to serve people and tell their stories and to create the work that is a representation of things that you identify with or things that happen in real life. And so, yeah, I think you just kind of placate on those like ideologies and you just go for it. But I will say that they do kind of like belong in they're all encompassing. Like, each kind of skill kind of connects and helps with the other. And if you would have asked me 12 years ago, 11 years ago, if I would be doing all these things, I would have been like, you're insane. That's crazy. No, but that seems like too much. But I think it makes more sense now in the climate and just trying to push the boundaries of filmmaking and just to let your work be seen,
What inspires you to write, and how do you create the worlds and narratives of your films?
Being a person of color, I feel more, as in the last several years, there are more stories that we identify with that is a representation kind of ourselves or people that we know. That's important to me. I think, I kind of had like an unorthodox kind of upbringing and something that was like very difficult dealing with some things growing up. It was out of the norm. So I think like me and my twin brother, we kind of saw things differently because of the things that have happened to us, which shaped us. But I think one of the things that helped me was like understanding perspective and perception, and understanding that your perspective, the perception of, is not everyone else's, but you have a voice and it's important. And I feel like, those unrepresented voices were super important to me, and I wanted to tell those stories. I like to make people laugh. I like to make people like feel something and think about things. And so that's kind of what got me into writing, because we all have our own unique voice. every single person, we all have our own perspective and perception of what life looks like for us, what the world looks like for us. And I think those are important because, you know, I often, like when you first start writing, you gotta kind of emulate other people, or like, oh, I like that idea, like let me try to do that. But then you kind of find your own voice and like what works for you, and you tell what you know and you tell what interests you. So it made sense to me to have a voice that tells certain stories. I like adding like real life aspects to the worlds that I build with a little satire, because nothing is ever just so serious and hatred. That you can find comedy and a little bit of everything, but there is like a real gravitas and like seriousness to it. And I really wanted to show that. So I kind of got me, well, how am I going to show this? I guess I have to write it. Darn, too much work.
Yeah, and satire, people don't understand. Satire is so hard to write because the first play that I wrote is satire, and it's like the one thing that you know have to deal with satire, because it's political commentary, is the backlash. Like, I will never forget, a couple of days after the work first premiered, there was a stage reading of it, and someone who I admire legit confronted me and was like, "How dare you?" And I was like, "Whoa, okay." So, and it's like, and I realize with satire and comedy especially, it's like it feels the most natural when you're watching these worlds unfold, but it's kind of the hardest to write because making people laugh is hard, and of course you're going to offend people. So
you told 100% facts there. You hit the nail on the head with the hammer. Like, you 100% facts. It is hard to write satire, but you know what I would say? Like, you're making somebody feel something, right? And if you're able to write something that is an emoting a response, that's impressive. Imagine if you didn't have any response and you're like, oh, okay, cool, but you made someone feel something. And I always say, like, kind of lean on that. And there is a balance, right? With satire, there is a balance. Like, for example, like right now, something that when I do a feature, like I co-wrote a project with a friend of mine called The Switch Black. And I'm right now trying to seek funds and stuff for that and get that developed, or try and, pitch it to network. But you've seen Freaky Friday, you've seen every version of it, the change up. That's what it is. But it's a twist, and I haven't seen it done. Instead, it's like black and a white who swap bodies, who are rivals at a school. Well, you've seen that trope so much, right? But I wanted to like find the nuances, like, right, like I'm, where I'm from, Milwaukee, Wisconsin, it was like predominantly all black family. I'm mixed. My grandmother is Caucasian. But then we moved to Arizona, and it was extreme culture shock. And we moved when we were about 10 years old. And just growing up with that and seeing kind of the things that you hear, things you work. So I didn't quite feel like I quite belonged in a sense. But also, like in Wisconsin, sometimes, like back in the day, like we were also like, I was a lot more light skinned, we had, life and stuff. But at the same time, it's like, then you're like, people would say things to you also. So you kind of find that, like, where you didn't know where you kind of fit in both worlds. And so I wanted to placate that. So I wrote that project with a friend of mine who experienced that on the other end. And so we wanted to hit those nuances and make it comedic, funny, and also what people have heard and dealt with. But that's been really hard to shop and sell. But people wanted, like, oh my God, this is funny. But it's really hard for people to jump on something that kind of hits those marks in a sense. But when done right, and I find that balance, it ends up being well received.
So here comes one of the impromptu questions.
Okay, go do it.
Do you think, given, and I said yesterday, I think I'm going to do an offshoot podcast about Black writers talk about the political climate, because just the ways in which our identities operate and how they unfold in our work. Do you think that project would have been picked up, say, 5-10 years ago, before the current political climate?
Maybe. And here's the thing, is like that's the thing with it's hard to quantify or kind of like say for sure, but it's definitely a possibility. It is also a definite possibility that maybe 2 years down the road, it could be picked up or like want to go into production, because we're ever so changing, right? The political climate and what's happening is ever so changing. Now I feel like we go like this and like this and like that. And I think the industry is a representation of that. Um, so yeah, needless to say, it's hard to like say exactly, but it is a very possibility that maybe back in the day we could have hit those marks and it would have been like, oh, this is perfect for now. It's hard to say, but it's definitely a possibility.
Yeah, because I love when I have conversations with folks about things like Chappelle's Show or even like Blazing Saddles. Those things cannot exist in our world
anymore. Yeah. There's so many projects that I've seen that have been done that were like, oh, you can't do that anymore.
Yeah.
And so like I think when you write and you know that, you incorporate a little of that and do a fine line. Like my goal for that project especially was to make it understand and well received, but super light in the sense like you go in but you don't go full, kind of like what they say, excuse me for saying this, but like in Tropic Thunder when he said you never go full like that, like that's always like the middle ground what you do, kind of like you kind of play like, oh, you say that but like I'm not gonna go like full. You understand the insinuation.
Oh my God, because so for people who know me very, very well, they know that I am probably the most on PC Black woman, feminist with tattoos and a fro and very political. Like I gravitate towards things that really push the line. And Tropic Thunder, oh my God, thank you for referencing it, because that
Tropic Thunder is another one.
My favorite line ever in film is in that movie. And we probably know what line that is.
I do. And I do know what line. And there's a couple lines in there I'm like, oh my, like some of my favorite lines in film as well. I'm just like, it's so good. But like that's the thing, right? And it holds true now. Like you hit on those marks, but you don't fully invest, but you give like an insinuation where like, oh, like if you know, you know. And if you don't, that's okay. But the people who do, boom. So I kind of that part on satire at least. And then, but the crazy thing is too, like horror is my favorite. Horror and thriller is like my favorite genre, right? I love watching. I love being part. I want to create stuff in that horror climate, and that also, in a sense, pushes boundaries. Like I saw The Blackening not too long ago, and it was hilarious. It hit on a lot of those marks in a comical way, while also appeasing to like horror. And like that was horror satire comedy in its finest. Like that was really, really, there were some things I like, but like overall it was good and solid. And that is the kind of things that I like want to push, because that's from a voice that you don't really get to hear a lot in that genre.
Yeah, and I'm actually going to skip a question, and thank you for referencing that film, because I think The Blackening pushed not only so many boundaries, but it really questioned what we do with horror in terms of like Black people in horror, and like the whole thing about the ensemble cast and like who the actual villain is. That movie is so brilliant.
It's brilliant.
Yes.
Absolutely brilliant.
Yes, I'm going to skip a couple of questions. So, because you mentioned genre, and this is one of the things like that just really frustrates me. So a lot of, in terms of publishing, like for example, poetry was my first entry point to writing, because I did not start I actually started off in music and then shifted to theater and shifted into writing when I moved here to the Western Mass, Northern Connecticut area. And I've tried to get published in terms of poetry, and poetry has the most rules. They have the most boxes that you have to fit in and all these things. And it's like, if you like fuck up or like try to manipulate one or two things, they're like, that is not poetry. And I'm just like, okay, why are we within these restrictions? And I have a really good friend who teaches with me as well, and she says that poetry is the people's language. And I never thought of that. And I was like, ooh. So given that, and also too, even with playwriting and with like, even because I'm now working on my memoir finally, and even in that, like you have a little bit more freedom with creative nonfiction, but there's still all of these rules. So as an independent filmmaker, and I hope it's okay to call you that, because you like, I remember seeing in one of your reels, this was like your directing reel, and I was like, oh, he directed himself. Yep, and he's an independent filmmaker because you're doing all the things.
Oh yeah.
How much does genre impact and inform your work?
Honestly, a lot. But I try It does, but I try to break the mold. I love genre bending. I think genre bending, when done correctly, it's a little bit difficult and challenging, but I feel like it serves the best in a sense. When, especially when you have something and you know what it is, and then in the film you actually like address it inadvertently and discuss it, or like it's brought up out, and then you like go the exact opposite direction, because like, you know, right, like there's a nuance to film, there's a nuance to projects, and sometimes you see the same thing or the same kind of projects over and over. Now it's like I feel like pushing that boundary and kind of mixing a little bit of the both genres. But I do. Are you asking me like when I'm thinking about a genre, am I confined by what I write in those
Yes.
genres? Okay. Yes and no. I say sometimes yes, because if I'm doing horror, there is a nuance of those elements that make it horror. But when you add a little bit of satire or even comedy or even like a sense of drama, which happens a lot now often, right? It happens a lot. I feel like it does so much more than what the genre calls for. But I think, like, for an example, like, I'll give you an example. After Laughter, right? So like I've had the privy to work to be an actor in studio projects with like Sony, with Whiplash, and CBS which is Disney, ABC, whatever, with Code Black. And so I got to work with some really, really talented, great people, A-listers, B-listers, and really see kind of how they navigate and do the space. For After Laughter, me and my good friend Teddy, who I co-wrote it and co-directed it with, we wanted to hit a genre that hit on those dramatic elements, right? The story essentially After Laughter is about a Black family in the 1960s, and you see it tells through the eyes of these two kids who kind of grow up it starts off with the Bill of Rights being signed, and then you kind of see it only takes place in the family. You see the drama and stuff that happens with his family, but on the background, when you hear of all these social changes that happen throughout the year on like a character's birthday, like assassination of Martin Luther King that happened on the character's birthday, like the Bill of Rights being signed when someone's going through some things, and how the interpersonal relationships family can also be affected by the outside circumstances. When you're hitting those stories, right, it was a big endeavor because we hit 60s, 70s, and 80s with a period piece during COVID with the budget. We ended up getting like another investor and stuff like that to help with the funding. And they wanted a lot to put on emphasis to really hit those marks of what it is, of like some of those things. And I said, yeah, we'll do that. And we didn't. And we didn't because that wasn't the point of the movie. The point of the movie wasn't talk about like, the blackness of everything. The point wasn't talk about there's a character who's dealing with his sexual identity, and we don't want to play and have a character be mad and frustrated or like really deal with those elements, because we've seen that. And we know that those happens. But what if the family's so loving that they accept it, and another family doesn't outright say it, but you can tell they have a problem with it? And kind of that wasn't the whole story. The story was about the boys just growing up and changing with the circumstances that life has to bring because of what's happened to them outside the world. And now each of them kind of grow and take a change and live in that life, rather than like talk about specifically how are they feeling about those things in their life. And so referring back to your question, that was really hard to do with the drama period piece when dealing with like race and identity, because one of the producers or our executive producers wanted to really dive into those. And we didn't necessarily want to tell that story. And so it was really hard to do it the way that we did, but we did it. And I think it worked out the best for the story. And I think so, going back to it, yes, it can be hard to do with outside circumstances, because you want to hit those marks, because when you're saying a genre, then people watch it, they want it to fall into those genre. But if it's a good story, it doesn't really matter.
Yeah, because actually, I recently, and I'm really hoping when I saw how much the ticket was, I was like, I'm gonna have to sell my body in order to go. The Met Opera is doing this opera that I've been following for some time, called Anna de Mar, which is about the assassination of Federico Garcia Lorca, the playwright, and I like tickets are so expensive.
Mhm.
And I love abstract pieces. I love things that really bend genre.
Mhm.
Because this opera, not only is it like a classical music with orchestra, there's jazz, there's flamenco, there's folk
Mhm.
music, and then they also use soundscape of 1930s radio clips and gunshots. It's so cool. And I was like, I really want to see this. And I was reading the reviews because it just premiered at the Met a couple of days ago. And they've been workshopping and things like that on it. I think it first premiered in 2003. And the reviews for at least the Met production, not the one that was because it's a co-production, and this also tells me how much the budget was for it. I think like 5 or 6 opera companies are co-producing this.
Wow.
And the review that was in the New York Times recently slammed it pretty bad. And I was just reading it and also reading the comments, and a lot of the comments were leaning into, is this really opera? And I'm up here like, here we go.
Mhm.
Like, I'm like, what? If we really, I'm about to put my musicology hat on for a minute. I'm like, and sorry if I'm going on a tangent, but I'm like, if we really think about opera as a genre, it is literally something that marries multiple elements and
Mhm.
spectacle in music, theater, and acting. And
Yep.
that's what this does. And so I'm just like, just because because it's also was sung in Spanish, I'm like, just because we don't have mofos sitting up here in Italian wearing stuff from like the 17th
70, yeah.
century and
Yeah.
everybody's all white and it's like composed by a white person, we don't know how to engage with it and we say it's not opera. And I'm
That's
just like,
Mhm.
I'm exhausted with people wanting to stay in these boxes. And I'm like, because I teach arts management classes, and people are like, why aren't young folks going to things like Opera World? One, because the ticket to the Met is almost like $300 fucking dollars.
Yeah, it's
But
expensive.
also, two, it's like when you only want to produce things like Deflator Mouse and all, that's things aren't people aren't going to connect to it. Whereas with this piece, I remember even seeing in the comment section, somebody was like, I'm in my 20s. I went to go see this opera and I really connected to it. And now I want to investigate more and blah, blah, blah. And some of the old heads were like, I'm in my 50s and I'm so glad that somebody in their 20s. And I'm like, but again, it takes like taking risk and really stepping of genres. Because to be completely honest, like I feel like our generations, it's not that we're smarter. It's that I feel like because we've been exposed to so many different things,
So many.
our brains are a little bit more expanded. But then
Yeah.
also when you add the fact that we're folks of color, and two, given because you and I we talked about this, we're both from Big Ten schools, which are like
Yep.
super white, and Michigan now even more so than back in the day,
Yep.
are like the things that we're exposed to colors and really informs our
Mhm.
creative practice in different ways. And so, of course, we're going to want to bend genre.
Yeah.
So, yeah. Sorry for my rant.
No,
I
no.
just had to insert that.
I'm glad you said that because that's kind of how I feel as well. I feel like that's what it takes, right? You like I always like I say this like sometimes you do things to placate for the system in order to progress, which we do often. But you have to do also things what you think to do right. You have to do like when I sometimes like unless like someone's giving me $10 million, $5 million, okay, I'll do this. But I'm always gonna put my touch in it. I'll always have something to say in it. But if it's something too is mine, I always will create what I feel I would want to see. Like when it goes back into the question, when you add your voice. I feel like your voice is unlike anyone else's voice, and you have something to say. And if you have something to say, then say it. And the people who identify with it, awesome. It's because I always say like I create sometimes like, yeah, you want to play and you want it to sometimes to be received, or you hope that they like it and stuff. But ultimately, like when I create and do something, I do it because I feel like it's right, or I want to say something. And I think if you lead with that, and then you kind of find, other people who can push your thinking and stuff along the way, like it takes a team to create any project. I think that's a good place to start always.
And so, on that note, can you take us on a journey? I'm loving how the questions just segue so naturally. Can you take us on a journey on a film project's developmental journey? How do you get from idea to script to screen, especially as an independent filmmaker?
Whew. It is a process. There are so many ways, right? And it's so crazy because even in the book, I kind of like break it down into little segments. That's why in the book I put like, oh, let's do like networking, let's do like funding, let's do, it breaks it down with bullet points of things to do. So from beginning to finish, like you have an idea. The first thing you have to do is like write it down. If you are writing it and you want to, even if you're not directing, but you want to produce or you want to create something, or you will have a director or producer who maybe can do, you want to write, you write down something that you like, you flush it out. And that whole writing process is a thing. There's so many elements of that, whether it be editing, whether it be table read or reading it out there to see how it feels, see how it's responded, to fix some of those things that need to be fixed or wasn't understood, that wasn't understood correctly. So that's first and foremost. And then you have an element like the next thing you need to do besides kind of getting your team, if you're writing and directing it, then you already have that down. You always should have, I've produced a lot of the independent stuff that I've done, but I've always had help from people who know what they're doing. And I've had, relationships with like cool friends and stuff who I admire their work. You get a producing team, and then you have to seek for funding. I always say starting out, you should always try to do something where you can fund it yourself. So that way you can the first project that I directed, I spent the money that I could afford as much as I could, and some people threw in money, and it was okay, but I scrapped it because it wasn't up to the value of what I liked, so I threw it away. Like the people team had saw something, we're like, okay, now we know for next time what we need to build on, but no one ever saw it. No one ever saw it because I wasn't ready for my work to be seen. So anyways, but that's the first step. But if you want to get a production team, you have to seek funding. And what I did, especially for After Laughter and a couple of my other projects, I did a crowdfunding. I did Seed and Spark, which is great because it's a woman-owned company, and they really have great statistics of helping you get getting the bullet points and incentives so that you can get your project funded or reach your goal. And once you have that, you create a team, you hire all your crew, all your people, you set the dates, you figure out rates and negotiate them, and then you shoot and then post and edit. So it is a process. It's from start to finish, from mind to create. It takes a village. It is extremely hard for you to do it yourself. So it is really important to kind of build relationships with people who you either admire their work, they admire yours, or you just have a great relationship where you trust their work. And I think anytime you have that, it helps alleviate kind of the stress that goes along with creating it from finishing. But yeah, that's kind of the process. I hope that was clear. Was that?
Oh, that was totally clear, because it makes me prompt another question. And this is something that I've talked about in other episodes with other creatives. Do you have a team of folks that you regularly collaborate with? And if so, what roles do they each have when it comes to a project?
Yes, I actually have a list of probably like 2 to 3 to 4 people for each position. And it's because I've lived in LA for now maybe 13 years. So I've really seen their work. They've seen mine. We've worked together on things. So I know how they work. I know that I push their work and they push mine and make it better. One thing going back, I'll answer that too. One thing going back to, it's always nice once you've had that and you have kind of a resume and stuff, it is easier to get money, not just from crowdfunding, but from private sources. Like I have had relationships and mentored the people who also matched what we made and put in more money or admired our work. And so that helps. But yeah, I have a position, I have my cinematographers. I have 3 who I work with all the time. I have my producers of Circle who I've worked with. Maybe I've worked with 3 on this project, or I've worked 2. They're not available, but these 2 are. And then I have a list of aligned producers with help keep people on task. And then they have crew. They usually people who are cinematographers and they work with kind of the same people. They have kind of a team. And then I bring their team. And then by that, because of years, now I also have a relationship with them. Mm-hmm. So honestly, it's a lot of trial and error. When you first start off and you move here or wherever you start, you don't really know how it's going to be well received or how you're going to work together or how their work is. I've worked with people when I'm like, oh, they'll deliver, but they oh man, I have to find somebody else, or dang, that wasn't what I was expecting, or they're not giving me what I want, or it's not a good working relationship. It's trial and error. But after years and experience and working, you do find your team. And then they have people who they worked with, which essentially is also part of your team. So it's it expands.
Yeah, because I definitely I have teams when it comes to playwriting. I have teams when it comes to poetry, and I also have teams because I do a lot of devised theater work and all that stuff. And it's so beautiful when you can find those people that you can work with often, and then also too, those are the people for me that will be honest with me if something's great or if it sucks, and I actually listen to them, because
Yeah.
some people say, and I'm going to be very, because I'm very reflective, I I can be very when it comes to getting feedback, but it's like I have to really filter through what that feedback is, because I'm like, is that feedback productive? Is it, because also too, there's a lot of competition, and this is why I love collaborating with folks, because collaboration suggests that we work in industries that scarcity model, but it suggests we can live in a world of abundance. And
Hmm.
so I, have to be really careful with how I solicit and get feedback, because some people, they can be, it's a sense of competition, or it can be a sense of, we want to see you succeed.
That part. And that's how you nailed it, because then
Yeah.
you trust the people that you've worked with for years who have given you advice or helped you along the way. And but sometimes like not everyone is on par, even working with them. Like for instance, like when I was doing After Laughter, there was some uncertainty, like, are we going to be able to pull these shots off in the amount of time that we have? And there was a little bit of like discrepancy, or just a little bit of like, doubtfulness. I don't know, but I was so adamant because I know exactly what needs to, like, just trust me, just do this. And then once we started, like, oh yeah, let's do this. And then get excited, because when you're confident about something and you have experienced something, and then you like go and then it's working, people fall in like, oh, okay, maybe this will work. Maybe, oh, they're right. And then it can be on the opposite scale. I always say, at least for when writing, unless like you're a DP and you need some shots and like, hey, we literally can't do that. Like we literally, okay, cool. But that's when you're like, okay, we'll pivot. It's all about adjustments. We'll do this instead. I always say, except for in those cases, I always say, like when you're writing something, or you have like you're playwright and poet and stuff, when you're writing something and you're having friends or people read it, when people have questions, I always say, if you lead by this, or rule of thumb, if people have questions on to how that is what it is, or have more than one questions, like, okay, that's understand, but like, can you explain to me why? They're usually right. Because if someone is questioning something that you're a point that you're trying to get across, but it's not getting across to them and they question it, you should adhere and listen to that. Often though, when people give you advice on how to change it, they're not necessarily right, because your way of how to do it is, but questioning it in itself and not knowing that answer, or it not clicking with them, leads you to figure out how it can. So I always say, like, that's a good rule. Like, usually if the question, like, they're right, but then if they tell you, like, you should go do this and that, I don't, not at least 80% of the time, 90%, they're not right on that way of doing it. You are, but the question is the answer, in a sense. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
What comes? I'm sorry. Go ahead.
No, I said that's helped me. That's helped me in my filtering of how to put things out there.
What comes first for you? Character, setting, or overall mise en scène? And I love asking this question, because for filmmakers, you have to think about, because at least with certain genres of writing, especially like with playwriting, you leave a lot of things to other collaborators, like directors. And then your work then lives on with other people, like other theater companies, producer work, and things like that.
Mm-hmm.
Film is different. Film is very different.
Yeah.
You have a little bit more control of the world that you can create. So, with that said, what comes first for you, character, setting, or overall mise en scène? And what sources besides creativity and imagination do you use to develop characters? I know you talked a little bit about like the lived experience, being a person of color, and all those things. So I would love to hear more about that.
I find, and here's the thing, when I speak or my personal experience in something, this works for me, and this is not for everyone. Everyone has a different way of doing something, and I'm never here to tell someone this is the way, that's the way, because there is no right way. There's only a way that works for you to tell the best story or to create the best vision. But for me, essentially, I think story is super, super important, right? What is the story you're trying to tell? What are you trying to say? What is the story that you want people to look at? And then from there, the characters within those stories make the story that story. And then third, I go to, okay, then what are the circumstances or setting that they're in to have these characters react this way in the world that you're creating? I always say, for me, that helps more. Like if you have a setting and you're dealing with this, like let's say, for instance, I'm in a sci-fi story or I'm in like a futuristic story, right? That's the setting. With the story, there's a foundation of those things that are going to happen or not happen, right? And then the characters placed in that story based off the things that they go through or who they are tells the choices that they're going to make within that story, which provides your setting, which provides the conflict, which provides the comparison, which defines like the relationships that the characters have together or not. For me, at least, that's what helps.
Nice. What are some overarching themes that emerge in your work? And if someone was to define you by genre, what genre would you say speaks to your work and craft?
Oh my God. That's a rough one. Can you say it one more time? One more time. I'm so sorry.
You're not. I ask all these big questions.
You have some really good questions. You got some good ones.
Thank you. What are some overarching themes that emerge in your work? And if someone were to define you by genre, what genre would you say speaks to your work and craft?
Overarching themes in my story, I feel like the character journey in a sense, like, you know, like the heroic journey. I always write characters. Now that I'm putting it to words, it just came clear. I always write characters who are dealing with something internally, completely. Either it be with self-discovery, whether it be with identity, whether it be with the relationship that they strain that they don't have with a parent, or that are dealing with something. And then from there, the internal conflict that they're dealing with is exacerbated by the external thing happening in the world. So I feel like I do write characters that are dealing with something, and it's hard to live with that thing that they're dealing with, whether it be like a disorder or stressed or whatever it may be. And it's hard to move in the world that they're in for themselves. So I write characters who need a lot of growth, but then I also write another character who kind of a mentor character who like in everything pushes them along and helps them see the light, because that's what, you know, it takes for the kind of the relationships. But I do find that now that I'm saying, like, the characters are all dealing with something that internally that they're trying to figure out in order to move in the world, you know, in order to feel a sense of belonging, in order to feel like loved, in order to feel like they have progressed in the world, or they're thriving. So I feel like that is my overall archetypes of characters. And I feel like as far as genre, it's really hard. Like my favorite genre that I really want to explore more is like horror and thriller, kind of like sci-fi horror thriller. I really, really like that genre. I feel like a lot of the times I've done kind of like dramatic comedies with satire. Like I've directed and wrote and produced more of those things than I have of anything. But I always find that I always, specifically because I've never been confined by like what I do, like, oh, you're not just acting, you're writing, directing, producing, and you did this and you did that. Like I've never been one facet. I've always been multifaceted. So I feel like my genre kind of is a representation of that in itself.
Nice. So I think this is a great segue into this. I would love, and thank you so much for selecting some clips to show us of your work.
Of course. And I switched to Google Chrome. I have them saved in my Sapphire, but I think I can transfer them over. Let me share. I just do present, right? Let me do present.
Yes.
I will share. Let me do present. Share screen, maybe. Yes. Okay. So, I'd like to record computer screen and audio. Open systems. Yes. Cool. There we go. Hold on, sorry, I'm just sharing this so I can use it.
Cool. And it's been a minute since I've had folks like share screen and share their work visually.
I love it. Okay, cool. Let me see. So you can see my screen, right?
Not Yes.
Can you share it? See it?
There it is. Okay, at the stage.
You see it? Yeah.
Yes.
Okay.
There we go.
All right. So let me do.
Ah, there's my email.
Can you see it right now or no?
I see my email that I sent you.
Okay. So I'm still on Google. Hold on 1 second. Let me just do Vimeo.
There we go. Thanks, folks who are watching, for your patience.
Yeah. Sorry, you guys. Thank you. Let's do. I have them queued up on here, so hold on 1 second. Yeah. Bear with me. I realized that my the Safari that I was in and trying to access wouldn't let me open into the StreamYard, so I had to switch, and then I switched right before I joined the meeting. So
no, this is a good note to myself for because I have another filmmaker that's coming on later in the season.
Mm-hmm. Cool. Let me see. Please work. Yay. Okay, cool. All right, so now that I'm in, heck yeah, let's do this. Let's go to my library. Boop, boop, boop. I have so many projects. All right. So first I'm going to share this is the After Laughter trailer for people if they want to view. Can you see this?
I still have the email.
Are you not seeing this Vimeo?
There we go. Now I see it. There we go.
Okay, here's the trailer for After Laughter. So I'll share this and then I'll share a clip.
Perfect.
Expression makes wise men go mad. Your fathers were wise men, and if they did not go mad, they became restive. But with brave men, there is always a remedy for oppression.
Hey, Jamal, did I tell you I'm not a virgin anymore?
What?
You want to be the man now, huh? I tried for you, boy. I tried to teach you about family, about responsibility.
I feel free. Like I can be who I am, not who I think I'm supposed to be, you know?
Yeah, that good? Did you see that?
That was perfect.
Okay, and then I have one more. Let me get out of this. Okay, and then I have one more project that I wanted to share. This one is just a clip from Steady and Balance. This was a oneer. I love incorporating one shots or long takes essentially. I feel like they're super fun and you get to be kind of in the world. So this is one that I did called
Baby, I saw your bracelet. I like it so beautiful. I just want to buy it, you know, because it has like these pearls under it. It's so pretty. Come on, I'm talking to
Ah, Dios mío. Oh, Latin. What can I get you? The usual, amigo?
We love women.
Is there anything I can get you to? Maybe dessert?
Sounds great. What do you recommend?
Our apple pie is delicious, but you can't go wrong with the cheesecake either.
That sounds great, but do you have like blueberry, peach?
Trust me, the apple pie.
Okay. Do you want to share? I don't think I can have a whole one.
Yeah, well, it's a pretty decent slice size.
Yeah, okay. All right, yeah. 2 slices of the apple. But 2 forks. We don't share germs.
Of course. No problem. Hey, sweetie. Do you want anything to drink? Water? A Coke? Milk? All right. Milk coming right up.
The time lapse we did visual effects to show basically like and walks into a bar, some shitty characters come in, and then he kind of kicks their ass. Yeah, so that's it.
Wow.
And then I just will show you kind of the end of the action scene that we have here, if you don't mind.
Yes.
Just to show kind of like what happens in this. Oops, let me do this.
Nice.
Okay, how do I play this? Can you still see everything?
Yes.
Okay. I just want to make sure I'm trying to do the best for this.
Oh yeah, this is perfect.
Present. How do I press play now? Okay, let's go back to here. How am I pressing play? There we go. Present. Oh, there we go. Here we go. Sorry about that. I figured it out.
Oh, good.
Come
Hello?
on, let's go.
It's him.
Go to shit.
That I'm sure. So contact him. Da. See if he's worthy. Now they can handle him.
There we go.
I knew I was looking.
So that was those two that I'll share with you.
Yes. I can definitely see now like how you like exploring the interiority of a character, and I think you get that really well through long shots. Like I never really thought, because I'm like, I've never really thought about, okay, what's the purpose of long shots and why do we go on this particular journey with the character? So thank you for sharing. This was awesome. Thank you for sharing that specific scene. And then also your great response to that question, because it connected really well.
Thank you so much. Yeah, I just got featured in League of Filmmakers, and I did a whole essay for class, like video, and I showed all the oneers. Because I think I sent you the link to the whole film to After Laughter, right? So that opening segment is a full oneer, and I think I love doing oneers, especially, which is extremely difficult to do, but I think it's not bad if you block it and just do the time. It lets you feel immersed in the world and see things happen in real time. And when you kind of implement oneers, but then with like segments of takes and cuts, it kind of adds a real life kind of feel, very docu style, which I love, So yeah, thank you so much. I appreciate it.
So I would love to kind of take a detour a little bit, because we talked a little bit at the very beginning about where we were industry wise about a year ago.
Mm-hmm.
And and I'm excited about this because this is the first time I'm talking about this on Black Writers Read. This is the first time I've had an opportunity to talk about it in terms of like how much, like, why the SAG-AFTRA strike was really important. What the outcomes are doing to the industry, and then also too kind of like essentially like what has it. I'm trying to think of how to formulate the question because there's like 20 different questions in my head. It's like I'll share with folks where this question is coming from. So, and I shared this with Adrian off camera. So yesterday I was reading the New York Times, and there was like this article that was like, oh, it's like 9 minutes to read, but you can play. And I was like, okay, I can do this while I'm doing stuff in the background. And I was playing the article, and it was like, this is an automated voice, and I'm expecting to hear a robot. Did not get a robot. Instead, it sounded like I legitimately had a real life person reciting this. And I've seen tons of shit. Because I have friends that are actually I have friends that are WGA, and it's like I have been following both strikes and outcomes, and there's just so much that I feel like folks don't know in terms of
100%.
in terms of the ramifications of what like producers and all of that, and just distributors and things like that are trying to take away from actors and other creatives in the industry, and also too just the impact of AI. And I'm seeing the impact of AI as an instructor. Like I am putting this out here. Like I had a student who legit had the audacity to submit. I can't say exactly specifically, but we were reading a book on a Greek philosopher, and you could tell this is AI because her paper ended up being on something that was very modern day that sounded like the philosopher's name, but nowhere near. And I was like, do you think I'm boo-boo the fool that knowing that you went through AI? And then I have a ton of students, because I teach across 3 different colleges right now as I'm doing the adjunct hustle. Like so many students are using AI, and I'm just like, like AI, I'm not like there are things like Canva. I use Canva as like an independent content producer.
Canva, Midjourney.
Yeah. And it's made things simpler for me, but there are things within industry that not only are we taking jobs away, but we're also like we're using people's likeness and they're not getting paid. Which is just I'm like, absolutely not. So can you talk about, and this is a very loaded question.
No, it's great. I can talk about all of it.
Yeah, like this is a very loaded question because I've seen a lot of the impact, even in just like network television and streaming, of the return back. Post strike. So I would love for you to talk about, and I live 2 houses down from the train track, so folks may hear the train.
Okay.
This is why I love doing a lot of stuff myself, because you get these moments.
Good. No, it's okay. So all the things that you said I will address too, right? First, the strike, right? It was WGA strike first, which is the Writers Guild. And what essentially was supposed to be for benefit was to be able to get more, like, people think everyone has this big idea or big things that they think that, if you write, you're making millions of dollars. For a staff writer and stuff, it's not like that. For like showrunners or like first writers, yes. But for like staff writers, for some networks, you're getting paid pretty decently. But majority of them helping assist in writing shows, they're doing a lot of work and the money's okay to survive, but you're also wanting, when the show's over, let's say it gets canceled or something, you're not guaranteed on another network or another show. So then you're off looking for work again or trying to put out your resume and stuff like that. So essentially what the WGA strike for is to get higher wages for a majority of writers on staff or writing independently for features or whatever it may be, was to get more money, right? Also to be protected against AI, because, you know, with AI implementing and going to the vault of all the stories and scripts that are ever being told, and then using AI to write a script. Because I put it this way, using AI as a tool in order to lighten the load on your work is amazing. I think that's so good and so helpful. Like when I'm doing a script or a deck and I need to like, okay, I need a synopsis and a log line. This is just what the story's about. And it gives you ideas and prompts of that to say what you say really well in a brief sentence when you're pitching is amazing. I love that idea. I think it's great and helpful. But to write a whole script and to take someone's job based off all the things that have already been created by writers and then not get credited or paid is a disservice to the writers and to the story of what people are telling and emoting those responses. So that's kind of what they were fighting essentially, was better wages, was more opportunities, and to be protected against their work being taken and not getting compensated for it. The SAG-AFTRA was initially the same. It was even worse for like with the streaming services that happen. Usually, like I've done a lot of commercials, and I moved here in 2011, so I got some network. And you basically, as an actor, you're living off your residuals. Like you literally make a living off the residuals. You get a certain rate that you do for day, or however many days you're on set. And then when it airs, and every time, like that's when you get the stream of your money through advertising, broadcasting, whatever it may be. And it was that's where you get a majority of your finances. With the streaming services, it's streaming, so it's there all the time. So you're not getting a return or residuals enough to supplement what you were making for like broadcast, which is not as apparent anymore because everyone has streaming. So it was protected against that. It was also protected against like using digital imagery, or like you go in and you do a video recording and whatnot. And then now they have access to use your likeness as any time that they want. I think there was also something with backgrounds where like, hey, if you sign this thing and they want to do a digital imprint and now you have your face, they can put you in crowd or in background for whatever, and it's digital. So like they wanted to protect against that. So that's initially what the WGA and SAG after strike was protecting, for us to secure our wages and secure against AI. The studios kind of held out for longer than I think anyone expected, which had an impact on what we're doing now, because we were in a pandemic for 2 years and there was no work. You could not work on set. And so all the projects that had backlog, they either canceled or they had to move back and push back, right? So we were still trying to recover from the years of not having any work and the backlogs of things and deals being canceled and trying to reinvigorate them, and then scheduling from that. And then we go on a strike for a year. So essentially we're backlogged like years. And so now the climate is very difficult. Not a lot of projects and studios are spending money on a lot of innovative or cool projects. So I just got hired. I was a consultant for Tiger Pig Entertainment, which is it's an independent production company, and they're amazing. They kind of put me in a spearhead of like the of production and development. And we have amazing scripts with people attached with big projects. A lot of studios, which have a lot of the money, unless you go in and really doing the work seeking independently, aren't spending money on certain projects right now. The kind of rule of thumb is survive to 25. So it's been difficult to try to navigate that space or go into production where you get money, or sell projects that you guys own to also make money and then go into production. And I feel like that is a lot of what's happening in the atmosphere. So it's been really hard to, people in the industry, there's been a lot that's happened in the last 4 years. So people are struggling. I know, for instance, it's been difficult for me to I've had a lot of work and a lot of connections and stuff, but just to be able to get things going and stuff, it's been really difficult. It's really, really hard right now, unless you're with a studio. And even studios, there's been a lot of layoffs. A lot of people have been, had to let go because they couldn't afford it, or they're changing the atmosphere of how to work. So initially, it's challenging right now. I think I've lived here for 13 years. It's probably the most challenging of not consistent work, or not innovative work enough to be able to survive essentially. So you have to look for a lot of different other things. So that's kind of where we're at right now. However, I will say one cool thing, or one interesting thing, is that AI can do is right now I'm working on with a friend of mine who is kind of well versed in creating digital stuff. We're kind of working on our own Pixar short stories to create our own like channel and start doing stories. Like I'm writing and we're writing the stories. I'm going to direct them how the camera moves with the AI, but he's creating some of these like animals and characters like a Pixar style through AI, through coloring and all that other stuff through certain things. But we're doing the music. I'm directing the stuff. We're creating the stories and using it to try to doing what a budget studio can do for the money they have. Well, we have like nothing, but use it basically for next to nothing and make it look like that quality. I think like that kind of is the future where we're going as independent artists, is giving access to be able to do like what would be $1 million projects for like next to nothing, but make them look like that when you have amazing storytellers and directors who don't have access or don't have the funds to do that, to create those stories. So I think that is a cool, interesting way to do it, or trying to figure out how you can do virtual production at like a quarter of the cost through visual imagery and AI to like help with those stories. But essentially you're creating it all yourself. You're just having them put them together. You know what I mean? So it's an interesting time. It's a difficult time. And I'm hopefully next year in 2025, there'll be a lot more opportunities. Wow. I know it's been, I always say, like, if we were just talking to a group of friends today, like, oh, wow, we're doing all these other things. Like I talked to a friend of mine who's a COO and a CEO of a decent sized production company that, you know, is genre specific, that they pivoted and are doing other things out, got industry adjacent, but not in the industry until 2025, when there's more money circulating, when there's projects going. And this is like the COO and CEO of the company. So I think, needless to say, it's difficult for anyone else who's not even that to find work and to do things. So
dang, it's hard out here for everybody. Because in theater, it's hard. Like in theater, it's hard out here for everybody.
It is. It's a struggle. And we know we're artists, so we have to create the art to feel like we're doing things, to feel like things are moving. And I don't know about you, but sometimes it is difficult to be in that creative space when you're like, okay, I got like all these things to take care of, and like I got to figure some stuff out first. I got to do all these other things in order to do this first, you know? So it is a little challenging, but I'm hoping, like, you know, staying consistent and going out there, it'll change, but you know, we'll see.
Yeah, wow. Yeah, because people don't realize, like, especially with gig industries, like how much you have to do to cobble together your mortgage or your rent. Because I did, because I did gig work maybe like 6 months, and I was like, ooh. And thank God I was living with my now husband at the time. We were engaged at the time. I got married much older. But if I were by myself, unfortunately, I would be, and especially since I don't come from money. I'm like, and this is why I think we talked about when we first like came on before, you know, I was like, yeah, I would have like my dream job in undergrad when I was younger. I was like, I want to either write or be a researcher for late night television. Like, who was going to pay my rent during
that part?
During the year of the Page program. I'm like,
I had so many odd jobs to support this until I was working a little bit more consistent. And then after the pandemic and strike, like, okay, I was working consistent, but not a lot of work, but I have this gig, that's cool, but when's my next one? I don't know. It could be a couple months. It could be 4. So it's like really trying to like make it strive. But thank God for like my father and my mom, who like are, you know, supportive as it can be, and my twin and my uncles and stuff, who really kind of like, hey, keep doing it. Like, what do you need? Like, just try to be supportive as much as possible. However, like, I'm still consistent and doing the work and out there, and even working for a production company, like big one. Like, we need to be able to make a couple have these products and be picked up. Like, we just had a pitch. We had a pitch for Hulu for a project that we had, and they wanted and stuff, but they're not taking on the products right now. So it's like we're literally trying to make moves to keep it flowing, and it's just finding difficult right now, you know, but you're still going, and you're going to make it happen, I guess, if you don't have any other way, right? But it's been, honestly, I love the industry, and I've done some great stuff and work with some great people, and it's been nice to be able to create in the space, and I'm going to continue to do it. And you know, like I said, a couple projects that we have right now that are like big, that we're just waiting to things to pick up that I can go in production for and stuff. They'll happen, but you know, I think just in general, if anyone's out there listening or reading, like if you're an artist and you want to create, keep on creating. Times are tight right now. They're challenging for everybody, not just, you know, film, television, theater, but a lot of other positions and jobs too, you know, like just the climate in general. But yeah, I think consistency and networking always helps, which is why I wrote my book. Was talks about all those things and how effective those things could be.
Yeah. Like I literally wish this book was available like 20 years ago, because also too, I've found myself I've self-produced theater festivals. I self-produced a spoken word album, and that project was such an eye opener with how much like the project cost, and then also like how like getting it out there was so hard. And to be honest, and I can joke about it now, if it weren't for my parents dying suddenly and having, I'm so glad you can laugh at that, and having access to life
before I knew they died. Oh my God, I'm sorry.
No. You're totally okay. And but I laugh at it now. Like I'm like, if like my parents dying and leaving behind insurance money, there's a lot of projects I would not be able to do. Like people, I don't think they realize how much, like even this old podcast, and I self-produced this, and I'm like, yo, I got laid off from my full-time job a couple of months ago, and I'm like, how the fuck am I going to fund this? So yeah, so people don't understand like how much it costs to do the thing that people enjoy watching and interacting with.
That part, oh my God, you literally, everything you're saying, yes, 100%. It is challenging. People don't know how much work it takes into that. Or like, why don't you go do this and do that? I'm like, oh, don't you think I thought of that? Like, of course, like, duh. But it's really hard. Even if you have with the company, right, as a startup or whatever, and they have some money, even still, it's still difficult in the climate, right? You're based off the work that you give, but you need money to do it. And then when you do it, you need people to see it, and you want people to like, you know, enjoy it. So there's more. It is very, very, very challenging, extremely hard.
Yeah. I have a couple more questions for you before we wrap up this afternoon. Well, now it's afternoon for you, because here it's like 4:31. Prior to having our guests on Black Writers Read, we ask each of them why they write. Here's what you wrote. I write sometimes as a sense of therapy. I have so many ideas entering and exiting that I have to write them down. And from there, they turn into vivid dreams and stories. So it helps keep my mind at ease. Other times I write as a way of escapism from the challenges that life brings. I mostly write screenplays, which visually sets up stories to be seen. I write stories that shine a light on underrepresented voices. Reading these type of stories makes me feel not alone. I know that if I feel this way, there has to be others. So for me, there's also a sense of connection. And thinking about all of this in the totality of your identity, especially as a filmmaker, and I love this in your book. You dedicate your book to your son. I think it's so sweet.
Thank you.
Yeah. And
honestly, oddly enough, I would not have written that book had it not been for Phaedra, my partner. She's like, you should have. I was like, I'm not. That's going to take forever. I'm not doing. No, I have this project that I'm doing right now. I don't have the time. And then she was like, just okay, write it. I'll edit it. I was like, all right. And then I wrote it. I was like, thank you. But it is. Everything you're saying is right. It's hard to. I dedicate. My son really pushed me to like really try to find as much ways as possible to keep it moving, give something back, and just share things. You know. So, yeah.
I just love that family is so important to you, because also you dedicate like to your mom, dad, uncles. I was like, dang, he doing the whole family roll call in here. I love it.
I do. My family has been like, you know, through everything and stuff, like they've been as supportive as possible. And even if you're like with family, sometimes you're like, oh, I disagree with that. No, I'm not talking. I'm mad. I don't want to talk. But at the end of the day, it's like you need your family often, especially doing this, or you need a support system, whoever it be friends, whether it be family. And like, so I feel that. And my uncles too, like, we've been through a lot together. We ride together. We die together. You know what I mean? Like, we all we got.
So I'd love to know, What is the mission of your work, and what is the legacy that you'd like to leave behind?
I want to create worlds and tell stories that people can identify with, that make people think, and to also put highlights on stories that maybe aren't shared a lot or aren't talked about a lot, because that's what stories essentially do. It helps people not feel alone. It helps bring them together because, oh my God, I've done that. I have had that experience. Someone else has. Whoa. And so like, connection, right? I feel like in the world today, like a lot of us are lacking, not all of us, but in the world in general, a lot of us are lacking empathy and caring and understanding. I feel like a lot of times we don't actually listen to each other. We just pinpoint and want to say what our point across. And that's important rather than listening to what someone else is going through and be able to like connect and just hear it. And so I feel like, at least for me, when I was young and going through like movies and music really helped me feel a sense of like community. It helped me feel like, oh, we're creating something together, our backgrounds, but then there are things that are similar, even though we're different. So connection. And I feel like that's the legacy that I want to like leave on. Like, even if the stories I tell are like super visceral, graphic, or violent, there always is a message in there. Or even if they're funny and satire, like I want to share a point of life, a slice of life in general, because I love doing slice of life pieces. So that's kind of the legacy that I want to leave behind, and leave something back for my kid, leave something back for my son. Like have it where I'm like, oh, I'm running something. I'm like, I'm giving this to you now. Now you can do it, or something for him to see when I'm gone. So that's kind of been important for me.
That's so sweet. And then to close us out, what is next for you, and how can the Black Writers Read community support you on this journey?
Oh, thank you so much. So what's next for me, like I said, I'm working with Tiger Pig Entertainment. I can't talk about a couple of the products or people that we have attached right now, but they're very, 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 very nice, and a production company that wants to distribute it. A big one. We just have to like find funding. So that, along with I'm really trying to get the Switch Black off the ground and start to get like funding for that as well, partnered with my company. So that's literally what I'm working on right now. Like I said, we have 2 features right now that we literally have ready to go. One is being optioned right now. I can't really talk about them, but just the support to be able to see my work and to be able to, like, when I put something out there, I would love for response back, especially from the community. And watch film, guys, watch film, TV, and listen to our stories. People of color, non-people of color, like secularists, religious, whatever you identify with, listen to them and know how much hard work goes into it. That's pretty much it. And if you're creating, I will say, if you're creating, writing, directing, producing, performing, singing, songwriting, music, it's hard right now. It's difficult, but the art and the music is still there. So keep doing it. That's all.
And thank you for mentioning about going to see film. And one thing that I always push for folks, don't wait for streaming. If you can, try to go opening weekend, please.
Yeah, that part. That part. I love the movies. I love this escapism for me. I don't feel like my problem is I'm like, I'm gonna go see a movie, and then for those hours I forget about it. So yes, go see movies, guys. Go listen to music. Go to a concert. All of it.
Yeah, which I'm somebody, I like right before the pandemic has kind of changed things for me, but I'm slowly returning, but I'm that person. I have like a membership at like my local art house. I also like have the monthly Cinemark deal, and when movies come out and I love them, I bring people with, like I did that for Black Panther. I saw Black Panther and I was like, holy shit, this is amazing. I saw it 5 times. I bought people tickets. I was like, you are coming with me to this movie and we're going to watch it together because I want you to experience it. But I love the movie going. I love the whole, like watching, like just that whole communal experience of watching something together.
Same. Speaking of that, my son's favorite Marvel is Black Panther. He loves Black Panther. It's his favorite. His first Marvel movie ever saw, and he's in love with it since he was like 3 years old. He saw the first one and has loved it ever since So the Black Panther will always hold a special place for me. He was that for Halloween, like like that was his thing, and I'm like, yes, dude, kill it.
Yes. And speaking of Black Panther, not to go on a rant, but like I still get chills thinking about the moment like when the Marvel title card came up, and I was like, this is we finally in this universe. I was like, yeah.
That's the thing is like, I don't know, for a while, besides seeing like stuff when I was young, independent, like that was one of the biggest like Black movies, like just proud Black movies that I had seen with I was just like, yeah, whoa. And to have it be Marvel, like that was pretty groundbreaking, especially for my kid who doesn't know, like at the time he was 3, and to see that and that just be like normal for him when growing up, we didn't necessarily see that representation and big stuff like that all the time, was like a really cool like handoff and see the world like, oh, things are changing, even though we still have progress to be made and stuff. Like that was really, really cool to see. So I agree.
Yeah. So Adrian, thank you so much for starting your afternoon off with us. For folks who are joining, he's joining us from Los Angeles, and I'm based in Connecticut, so we're like a couple of time zones away. So, and we have that. I love that we have the Midwest connection. He's originally from Milwaukee, and I'm from Detroit, and the Big Ten connection.
Big Ten.
Yes, and the Big Ten connection. So. Thank you so much for being on, Adrian. This was such a pleasure talking with you. My apologies if I was very scattered, but I was just like, oh, I have a filmmaker on. I have so many questions.
No, you were great. Every question you asked was on point in the segue for it. So I would also like to thank, as your audience, Nicole Young Martin is amazing. You're so talented. You're like, wow, like the questions you asked me were super, super deep and like very, very well, very well thought out. And I really want to also read your work, and like, let's continue to share and collaborate. And if I have anything, I'll be sending it your way.
Oh, thank you so much. And if you can just stick around, because I'm going to do wrap up. I wanted to like touch base with you on like 2 things. So thank you for offering to being, I would love to be in your community. This is amazing.
You're in, girl. You don't even know. You're in.
Yes!
In there.
Yes, thank you so much. I'm going to go ahead and do some wrap up. So thank you all for joining me for episode 5 of season 5 of Black Writers Read. I still can't believe I'm in season 5 already. I'll be back next week with a special episode of Black Writers Read on Sunday, October 27th. Yeah, wait, I think October 27th at 2:00 Eastern time. More information will be available on social media. It's a project that I'm looking to help amplify. And I'm going to take a little bit of a break because I have a big gig next week, and I'll be back in November to welcome our next author. Support Black Writers Read by subscribing to my YouTube channel, where many of you are joining us from today, or the audio podcast, which is available on Apple Podcasts, iHeartRadio, Spotify, or wherever you get your catalog of podcasts. Feel free to drop a review of Black Writers Read on one of the platforms. By supporting me as a subscriber or reviewer, you're helping to grow my community, and you're helping to sustain this award-winning podcast. Visit blackwritersread.com to learn more about the platform. So thank you to all the viewers for joining me this afternoon, and also the folks who joined me yesterday, and more importantly, for ensuring that Black authors continue to matter. See you next week.